How Biden plans to take on China.
President Joe Biden has launched two new initiatives to rival China's internet.
Isn't he stuck in Skyrim right now? I've seen that.
I'll have 2 honey ales, please. One for me and one for the lady, if you can call her that.
Coming right up.
How you doing?
Draugr looking son of a...
Nancy?
I am gonna drink 100
Nancy
beer
Pelosi?
tonight and smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah, how's he gonna do anything? He's stuck in Skyrim right now. You gotta get him
Commercial
out.
ambitions.
Funny
One
story,
is a
Tommy. Good
global
job.
infrastructure program that
Look, I'm an idiot. You guys are gonna be like, but isn't the best way to checkmate China to stop being dependent on their production? Like, stop trying to produce cheap stuff in China? Isn't that what made them strong in the first place? The greed of the West for cheap labor?
connecting dozens of countries spanning Asia, Africa,
I'm always
and
reading, yeah, China has problems right now. There's like bank runs and stuff. Something bad is happening in China right now. They're trying to keep it down. They have some issues, man.
Europe. The other is a trade bloc in Asia Pacific that encourages Western businesses to relocate elsewhere in the region away from China. It took Washington more than 10 years
Capitalism
to
made
develop
China.
these
I
two
fully agree with
programs.
that, yeah.
Up until now, there was no
He's actually
credible
bringing PC
alternative
production
to
to the US.
Chinese investments.
That seems actually
And though
quite
the
intelligent.
details have yet to be negotiated, the two initiatives make up the hallmarks of Biden's foreign policy. So, what is this about? And can America beat China at its own game? Writing the new rules of the 21st century economy is not easy. At the G7 summit in June 2022, Biden and his counterparts launched the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, or PGII.
Hey, sorry. Wasn't this guy... Didn't he used to be black?
Infrastructure and Investment, or PGII. At heart, the PGII is a reinvention of Biden's previously proposed Build
Partnership for
Back
Global
Better World
Infrastructure.
initiative,
Build
which
Back
sought
Better
to
World.
counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. Drafted in 2021, Build Back Better World gained little traction despite vigorous
I've never heard of
lobbying.
that. Thank you, World
Primary
Report.
problem was gathering support for the initiative at home. Consequently, the lack of public commitment made it difficult for Washington to finance the project independently. Not surprisingly, Build
Wow,
Back
is
Better
what is that building? That's a
World
beautiful building.
failed to pass.
Capitol. Is that the thing that they raided? It is? Oh man, that's a shameful thing for your history, Americans, man. That's very shameful.
Congress.
Wow.
Now,
Beautiful building, though,
roughly
man.
a
Wow.
year later, Biden has reached a new deal to spread the burden of financing by teaming up with the other G7 countries. The new plan is for the G7
used to
nations
it.
to mobilize
Could be worse, we could have had
$600
Nazis.
billion over the next 5 years to invest in global infrastructure projects. Most of these projects will take hold in middle and low-income countries, and most projects will be geared towards 4 categories: renewable energy, healthcare, gender equity, and digital infrastructure. Biden says that the plan will allow
what gender
participating
equity
nations to see the concrete benefits of partnering with democracies.
I always wondered about New York. What is this? Every time when I play Spider-Man and GTA 4 and stuff, what are these buildings here? What is this like a university? What is that? Ellis Island. Like, do people live there, or immigration port back then? That's where you did the immigration. Oh, and what is it nowadays? I guess a museum or something. It's a ghost town nowadays. It's a museum. That makes sense. Okay, it's where Clinton hides her email. Thank you. Education.
Either way, the United States has pledged to contribute $200 billion to the initiative, while Germany, France, and Italy will raise 300 billion
Death
euros,
Island.
and the remaining of the total grant will come from the United Kingdom, Canada, and
Hey,
Japan.
you can get a bit
How
more,
much
huh?
funding
You
will
Muppets.
come from the private
Fuck.
and public sectors is
Leaves EU and then
unknown.
doesn't want to pay
Though
anymore.
impressive, America's Partnership for Global Infrastructure initiative still falls short in funding compared to its rival, the Belt and Road Initiative. Beijing's infrastructure project doesn't have an official price tag, but China has invested about 800
China's
billion
so
euros
fucking massive,
across the
dude.
globe, which surpasses the investments promised by the G7. And
Yeah, I
China
read
is
this big article years ago how they built a massive new Saturn road. What they're doing is they're buying a shit ton of companies everywhere here. They're slowly buying everything, and they have so much power
not
everywhere
done
and stuff.
yet. Trillions
I
more
remember
dollars.
my uncle has a steelworks company, like a small one, not even that big, and there was once Chinese people in his office trying to buy the company and stuff. I'm not Blizzard! You can't buy me! At least not yet.
are expected to be invested through.
And who can be mad at these people? Imagine you have a company, right? And the Chinese guy comes, gives you money that you're done for life. Yes, you give away your company to China, but who can blame someone that sells out to China, man?
The 6 arms of the Belt and Road Initiative
Silk
in
Road
the coming
2.0, yeah.
decade. What's more, according to official Chinese data, Beijing has signed more than 170 cooperation agreements with 125 countries and another 29 agreements with international organizations across Asia, Europe, Africa, and South America.
You also get a lot of
Matching
social
the
credit.
size and scope of China's grand
You don't
strategy
care about your
will
grandchildren
be
or China.
tricky.
Well, I know that my grandchildren have a lot of money, and I think that's bit better.
Even for the G7 nations. But perhaps the biggest issue with the PGII, the elephant in the room if you will, is that the United States is bad at infrastructure investing.
well, what a statement. Americans, you just said that you guys suck at infrastructure investment.
First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
America is bad at maintaining its own physical infrastructure, let alone working on infrastructure projects
Oh,
abroad.
you're getting wrecked, guys.
It is by no means an accident. In 2020,
Jeez.
Chinese firms won $2.3 billion worth of contracts outside China, while the United States gathered only $27 million worth of contracts.
Ouch. Did you say million? That's nothing. That's XQC makes that in a month.
Only America has a lot of strengths, but China is just better at building. Nevertheless, Biden's project could
You never
give
know how
China a
quality
run
their
for
building
its
style
money.
is.
The PGII could provide some recipient nations with a feasible alternative to China. If implemented, the G7 infrastructure plan would reduce Beijing's influence in some places. For instance, in Angola,
Back in the day, I used to read a paper in Germany called Focus. Maybe Germans know it. I used to read that. And there was this article that sand is becoming increasingly rare on Earth. Right now on Earth, there's a building boom, which you need beton, concrete. You need concrete for that. And China is the biggest builder. They need a lot of concrete because they build a lot of houses for all the billions of Chinese people. They build. But for concrete, you need sand, a certain type of sand. You can't take Sahara sand. And what they actually do is they steal sand. They go to India and they take the sand from the beaches and then drive away and shit like that. It's super funny, man. But sand is
$2
becoming
billion
like increasingly
will be
important
invested
on
in
this
a
planet.
solar-powered project,
There's a video about that.
while $600 million will be invested to build a submarine telecommunications cable
China is
connecting
stealing so much, dude. Have you guys seen Seaspiracy? China is sending their fishing boats at night to other international waters like Argentina, and they steal all their fish, man. And they destroy all the ecosystems with the net fishing. And then when the sun goes up, they always drive away and shit.
Singapore to France through Egypt and the Horn of Africa.
Yeah, check
Still
out
more,
Seaspiracy
a
on
multi-million-dollar
Netflix.
vaccine manufacturing
There's like an Argentinian fisherman. He's like, you see these light at the horizon? That's all Chinese, man. They're stealing our fish.
facility will be built in Senegal. These projects, and many others like it, would be constructed by either American
fish
or
stealer.
European companies.
They learn
Doing
from
so
the best.
makes the Partnership for Global Infrastructure initiative less of a charity act and more of an investment to deliver returns for everyone. Yet, as promising as it sounds, in some places where the arms of the Belt and Road Initiative pass, Central Asia for instance, the geography and economy depend on either Russia or China. Biden's plan will make little to no difference in such places. The second part of Biden's
Wow,
endgame
what a building, man. Wow. I'm so impressed by this building, and I can't believe it was taken by a bunch of fucking Telegram Facebook Muppets. That is the saddest thing ever, man.
is the trade aspect. 1 month before signing the PGII in May 2022,
Very impressive
Biden
building, man.
had rolled out a new type of economic agreement that
call them
included
Trumpists.
13
Trump
nations
initiated
in
that raid.
Asia
Yeah, he did
Pacific,
that, man.
Japan, India,
That is a fact.
Australia, South Korea, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, the Philippines, Vietnam, New Zealand,
Biden
Fiji,
never blinks because
and
they use
Brunei.
CGI on his face or some
The
shit.
deal, dubbed the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or IPEF for short, is Biden's
Vietnam
pivot
is
to
not
Asia
giving a
to
shit, man.
contain Chinese commerce at sea. The IPEF comes 5 years after Trump abandoned Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement.
Why would he do that, though? Why would he abandon that? I never heard of that before. But no one ever talks about that when it's about Trump. That's fucking bad, dude. He probably had a better idea. He probably said, we're losing tremendous money in this partnership, and it's bad. It's really bad. I will make the most amazing Trans-Pacific partnership you will have ever seen.
Trade deals are notoriously disliked
first.
in the United States.
I think it's important to understand that you also defend America by working in a globalist world. You defend your country, UK, France, Germany, America, also by helping other countries. Otherwise, they fall to.
Which is why Obama's proposal failed to deliver. Biden, however, is going in another direction, something more flexible and loose. Unlike its previous iteration, the IPEF does not guarantee free trade between its members. Instead, it is an understanding to deepen cooperation between the United States and...
If Trump was president, there would be no war in Ukraine. That's such a weird statement. You never know if it's true. I mean, Putin loved Trump. He even provably helped this election, right, with his internet trolls. And I always felt like, why? Why is that? Because Putin knows that Trump, whatever Trump is a destabilization factor in the West.
This guy's a liar.
And Vladimir Putin and the people that got him elected, they must have had a nice glass of champagne because Trump did so much damage to the unity of the US. And that is a fact. You can't deny that. The US is so divided. They're just fucking each other over fucking everything, man. If the US was united, man, bro, they will take over the world in a second, bro. So I don't know about that statement. I don't know.
And the Asia-Pacific nations. The details have yet to be negotiated, but taken together with the United States,
Americans, man, if
the
you guys will all
Indo-Pacific
fucking just come
Economic
together, man, you will
Framework
take
for
over the world in a
Prosperity represents about 60% of the world's population.
That's what I always feel, man. The biggest enemy of you Americans is your division, man. They want, your enemies want that, you know? That's like the thing.
Population and nearly 40% of the global GDP. Those are some serious numbers. The purpose of the economic alliance is to counter China's influence by enhancing political and economic cooperation within the region. The IPEF will focus on four...
Man, New York is so impressive, dude. Scheiße. We saw a documentary the other day, right? The apartments here, you cannot afford them ever, man. All these apartments, like up here, are really just for really rich fucks, man.
4 pillars: supply chains, renewable energy, anti-corruption, and maritime trade. The members of the economic bloc will enjoy certain advantages from American companies that are looking to relocate away from China. So,
China did more for development in Africa than the West ever did. Don't you feel that China doesn't care about the people in Africa, but they want the rare metals that are apparently needed for building smartphones and
Western
stuff?
businesses move away from China in the coming decade, the IPEF has the potential to fill the vacuum. India, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines have large workforces that could step up and fill the void. The shortcoming, however, is that
that's the world, though. It's not fair saying the West doesn't care about Africa, but China does. Do you care about Africa? How much money do you send to Africa? What kind of statement is that? Come on. The truth of life is that no leadership on Earth cares about Africa. If they go there and invest there, it's for power, it's for resources, it's for all that shit, man.
Without greater access to the US market, the IPEF will lack the game-changing incentive to tip the balance. The terms are still being negotiated and the talks could last until 2023, but the fundamental question is whether or not Washington will offer lower tariffs or access to the US market. But since trade deals are difficult to close in the United States, the full reach of the IPEF is yet to be determined. Biden and his Asia-Pacific counterparts know this and see the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity as a stopgap policy that holds on to the belief that American domestic politics will come around and pivot to Asia. A sincere
My family founded
this
charity
time.
building in Africa. Good for you. We're talking about leaders. We're talking about the leaders of the world. No one's talking about your family, dude.
By any means, the greatest misconception in geopolitics is seeing the global order as a stable, immutable structure. America is still number one in criteria such as military, economy, and diplomacy. But the new kids on the block are increasingly challenging that role. China's Belt and Road Initiative has had a 10-year head start, and while the PGII and the IPEF are presented as America's triumphant countermove, it ultimately boils down to execution. A bad plan that is well executed will yield better results than a good plan that is poorly executed. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report.
This is a great YouTube channel. How China plans for naval dominance. This video starts with...
This video is...
World War III.
sponsored
Talking about Chinese Navy. In 10th grade, I made a speech about Chinese Navy. And there was this funny moment where I was blowing the mind of the class. This was so many years ago. 10th grade. I go to the board and I'm putting, so this many people are in the US Army. Crazy, right, guys? And then I blew their minds. I was then moving the board and I revealed the number of women in the Chinese army, which was more than the US Army. And I blew the class. The whole class went like, whoa, man. I was like, yeah, I blew your mind. That was sick. I got an A for that. I remember. I didn't get an A+, because I remember this so well, because I said women and not women. The plural of women. That was one mistake. Didn't get an A+ for that.
The Fujian is also China's first domestically designed and built aircraft carrier, an important milestone for the Chinese military-industrial complex. China is now officially capable of manufacturing the full range of surface combat ships associated with modern naval warfare. The US Navy remains at the top of the food chain, but
I mean, US Navy is untouchable, right? I'm not an expert, but I always hear and stuff. The US Navy is fucking insane.
China's growing sea power is changing the equation. Beijing is transforming from a continental power to a sea power. Its strategy can be summed up in two phases: naval dominance in the first island chain by 2030 and naval supremacy in the second island chain by 2050. As Beijing passes one milestone after another, alarm bells are ringing in Washington.
Like
At the end of the day,
China has one carrier. America's building 3 more carriers? I always wonder, where's that money coming from? Well, I know, because you guys have no health insurance, huh? Holy crap, they're building... No way. Biden signed a $770 billion military bill thingy. There's a law that America needs to always maintain 11 carriers. Holy moly. China has 2 carriers. Now it's 3. Oh, you guys, man, it's like 4 in a second. One American carrier has the capacity of all Chinese carriers together. When you hear stuff like that, it kind of takes away the fear of China. It's like...
By the equilibrium of forces. And
these American
will only
fucks, man,
continue
just gonna
for as long
go
as this
completely ham on you.
equilibrium exists. The true measure of power is a blue water
I don't know
navy.
jack shit about them,
It is
though.
also the surest guarantee of deterrence. About 40% of the global population lives within 100 kilometers of the coast. A navy capable of operating across the open oceans is a force of dissuasion. Governments tend to talk softly when the adversary can bring the machinery
The Navy meta is a lot about anti-missiles. That makes sense.
of war
So
to their
anti-rocket
shorelines.
seems to
Ergo,
be meta
a
as fuck,
powerful
man.
navy gives diplomatic leverage in negotiations, even if it is
There's a meta, man. You guys are
unintentional.
always laughing at the
A
word
blue
meta.
water-
Wow, look at that fucking beast, man. Till this day, I never fucking... Dude, there's like... How many people are on this thing? Like 5,000? 5,000 human beings are on... That blows my mind. Dude, you have like 3 guys rubbing the deck. You have like 20 pilots, 23. 1 commander and his staff, let's say 50. So you have like 100 dudes, right? Then the machine people, cook, etc. You have like 500. How do you put 3.3k people on this?
Navy also helps sustain
Also a lot
commerce
of,
by
infantry,
sea,
marines,
with globalization being the order of business, national supply chains.
I had a weird thought. Is that sexist? Do you want to send 3,000 men on a carrier out in the Pacific for months with sex withdrawal to keep them on the task? Or does it make sense in the meta to have a paid sex worker, like respect, she has health insurance, everything, to go with them to ease the tension on board? I'm not trying to sound sexist here. I'm just wondering if that makes sense. How's that weird? They have families. Dude, if you're the military, your wife will cheat on you, okay? And you come home after 10 months with a fucking fresh kid, okay?
Stretch across oceans and continents. For China, that is especially distressing, since much of its trade goes by sea.
There's a lot of sexual assault, though. Oh, yeah, great point, actually, Hazel. Very true. Yeah, that's
A
a big issue.
blockade by the
You're
Malacca
totally right.
Strait could inflict serious damage on the Chinese GDP. So the interplay between security and economy necessitates a blue water navy. China was reminded of this
When the US Navy carrier docked in Sweden once, a team of American Marines got arrested for buying prostitutes and shit. My god, let the guys, my god, they haven't seen a woman in ages. You know,
as
my
recently as 1996. The US Navy sent 2 aircraft carrier battle groups near Taiwan, which at the time was preparing to hold its first democratic election. The carriers were the pinnacle of American supremacy,
On YouTube,
and the
like the short
Chinese
one?
Green Water Navy withdrew
USS
to its
Donald
coast.
Trump.
They stood helplessly by as Taiwan exercised its mandate. For Beijing, it was a turning point. Something had to be done.
Joe Biden, always
Immediately
late.
after the Taiwan Strait crisis, the People Liberation Army Navy, or PLA Navy for short,
Dude, I have a conspiracy theory. If when you go to Beijing and you go to the Red Palace, there's a tourist thing where you can look at the corpse of Mao Zedong, man. And I have this theory. I think that's not his real corpse. It looks like a puppet.
purchased
believe that shit.
destroyers from abroad, secured technology transfers, set up naval shipyards, designed warships for mass production, and so on. This process was so gradual, so subtle, that much of it went under
at
the
the rust,
radar
man.
of
Holy
media
crap.
outlets. Now, 3 decades later, things have changed considerably. China's current naval policy is sea denial by means of anti-access area denial systems. These are a variety of missiles, air defenses, and electronic capabilities that can neutralize hostile forces and assets. The
That's very
PLA
clever by China, man. You can't beat them in the Navy, so you just make a fucking system that shits on everyone in this area.
Navy has
Clever.
invested vigorously in its anti-access area denial systems. While doing so, it has also developed lethal conventional forces that can exploit the openings their area denial
Fucking
weapons
military parades. Military parades is literally your neighbor knocking at your window, showing you his massive and just leaving again. It's
would
just to show,
create.
listen, man,
By
we have the bigger...
comparison, in
Look.
1996, during the Taiwan Strait crisis,
I want to see a German military parade, man. Funny, bro.
China's area denial
Can you
weapons
imagine?
weren't even capable of defending its coastline. The PLA Navy's missile arsenal could only reach as far as Taiwan and the US bases in South Korea. By 2003, however, China had expanded its infantry to hundreds of missiles, enough to deter foreign powers away from its coastline. By 2010, its inventory had
missiles are
grown
just
to
the
over
old meta, man.
1,000 conventional short-range ballistic missiles. At the same time, it had developed more sophisticated missiles like the DF-21C, with an estimated range of 1,700 kilometers, capable of reaching targets in Japan and the Philippines. By 2017, China had built thousands
Check
of
this, a Belgian military parade. That's not real. There's no way. There's no fucking way this is real. I don't believe that. That must be the handicapped section or something. When I was in the army and it was a joke, the first thing they teach you is how to walk properly.
conventional medium-range ballistic missiles
This was first year
and
cadet. Dude,
hundreds
in
of
my, we learned in 2 weeks how to walk. It was every day just walking, marching. Every day march training in the beginning.
conventional intermediate-range ballistic missiles
very special
capable
forces.
of reaching as far as Guam. Today, Chinese firepower at sea, complemented by its missile
I really want to invest into anti-missile system companies, like stock market shit. They must really be going up in the next years.
umbrella, is turning the scale in the Pacific. The PLA Navy is moving more routinely beyond its comfort zone. Going
He
by
was
gross
president
tonnage,
after Nixon.
in 2019, the US Navy accounted for more than twice as much as the PLA Navy. 4.6 million tons to
Oh, that's the
1.8 million
tonnage.
tons.
How do they have fucking...
That means
I always wonder how they have information about that. Like, how do you know how much tons China has? Don't they want to hide that? One thing I liked about Trump, I remember that there was a Trump interview years ago where they talked about carriers, and Donald Trump said, you know, unlike Obama, I'm not going to tell you where the fuck our carriers are. I like that. Like, this shit should be public, you know? No one should know where the carriers are.
the US Navy is still the top dog in combat capability. But
keep that
the
shit hidden,
PLA
bro.
Navy is growing at a remarkable
China
rate,
has a lot of
and
leaks.
Beijing isn't done
How to hide
yet.
huge ships.
If naval construction
I remember I told the story many times. I used to have a vacation on Sanya.
keeps pace,
There was like a
China
hidden
will
submarine
have
base, man.
5 or 6 aircraft carriers by
You can't hide shit
2030.
nowadays anymore. That makes sense,
still
yeah.
falls short compared
You
to
100% got
America's
watched.
11,
I
but
know.
China's naval objectives for Phase 1 are closer to home. While the US Navy must operate
hidden
in every
submarine
corner of the world,
There were
the
so many
PLA
Russians here. I was on vacation here. There's like a little vacation resort, holidays, and there were so many Russians, man. There's just things in life you don't forget. Me and my friend, we went to a restaurant on the beach. I was eating shrimp fried rice, and a Russian family walked in, like a woman, 2 kids, and a man. And that man, I will never forget, was the most muscular Chad I've ever seen. His body looked unhuman, man. That guy was a monster, dude. He was just a specimen of human. Maybe he's fucking dead in Ukraine right now. I have a poop attack.
A few moments later.
Oh, my ass.
For context, the first island chain is an arc of archipelagos that runs from Borneo to the Philippines, Taiwan, and Japan. By 2030, as part of Phase 1, the PLA Navy plans to rule the waves within that space. China doesn't need to match America ship for ship or tonnage for tonnage to accomplish supremacy in the first island chain.
That is true.
In case of hostilities, the PLA Navy would...
That's like in Hoi 4 when you build marine bombers, but you don't do any navy. Your enemy can have the best navy ever, you're still gonna fuck him over, you know?
operate under the cover of land-based missiles and fighter jets coming in from the mainland. Any hostile fleet within the first island chain would be...
What I would do if this was a roleplay game, right? You need to get India on your side, man. You gotta build up India, you gotta modernize India, you gotta make India ready, man. India seems very important in this whole
overwhelmed by missiles, torpedoes, and rockets. China's disputed territories, whether in the Yellow Sea, the East China Sea, or the South China Sea, serve this strategic end. Every island under Chinese control is another location for area denial
India
weapons,
and China have big
which
dating
then
each other, right?
push
There's a lot
foreign navies
tension.
out of what China considers its backyard. Through this strategy, Phase 1, China hopes to achieve naval dominance by 2030. Looking even further, by 2050, China is predicted to possess 10 aircraft carriers, considering the current rate of construction. Meanwhile, the
That's like in 30 years, man.
PLA Marine Corps will have grown to 100,000 strong. In many ways, the PLA Navy will resemble the US Navy in capabilities. And, much like its American counterpart, China will likely start acting with
Maybe it's time. I'm already hearing the Akatsuki music. Maybe it's time to really get Japan into the boat and let them rebuild their navy.
impunity.
A Japanese
That
navy
is
will really be
how
out for
power
you, right?
affects policymaking.
Until they fucking go back
Beijing
to Pearl
could
Harbor,
test
just
the
as I haven't been
boundaries
back
of
to
its
Pearl Harbor.
surface vessels, aircraft carriers, and amphibious capabilities. The PLA Navy would likely operate across the Indian and Pacific Oceans. By 2050, China will also have expanded its logistics bases around the globe. It already has a base in Djibouti, and negotiations are currently underway to establish similar bases in Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and the Solomon Islands. By Phase 2, China will likely have an extensive list of bases, which will be key to its power projection. If Taiwan is subdued by 2050, China will enjoy tactical advantage extending as far as the second island chain, which is a line of islands stretching from Japan to the islands of Micronesia. Guam in particular, a US territory located at the center of the second island chain, will become a strategic anchorage for power projection. Guam is home to thousands of US troops and hosts a naval base and an air force base. Both Beijing and Washington will look to replicate such military installations across the Pacific. Still beyond Guam is the third island chain, which runs through the center of the Pacific, with the Hawaiian Islands marking the most strategic points. By 2050, small pairs of Chinese vessels
Imagine you're stationed on Hawaii as a US soldier, man.
will likely start moving in and about America's backyard to demonstrate the freedom of navigation, just as pairs of American ships move into China's backyard. It will be a tit-for-tat between the US Navy and the PLA Navy, with the primary area of contention sitting somewhere between the first and second island chains. Meanwhile, in the Indian Ocean, the line running from Gwadar, the Maldives, and Diego Garcia, and a parallel line running from Djibouti to Kenya to Mozambique marks the boundary for the next Chinese-American rivalry. These lines, dubbed the fourth and fifth island chains, have numerous strategic sites. Diego Garcia, a British territory, is one of the most valuable islands. It holds a large base and is likely to act as a point of anchorage for naval operations in the future. For its part, China seeks to use the String of Pearls network to enhance the number of ports available to Chinese vessels. Myanmar, Oman, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Kenya, and Mozambique are some of the candidates that could
I mean, this is
host
just
new
hypothetically.
Chinese
I could imagine
bases.
by 2050.
That said, China's expansion in the Indian Ocean depends and could completely unravel should India step up its naval game.
Jesus, that's like Hitler, bro.
The Quad Alliance, which Washington is spearheading, looks to contain China's naval aspirations by joining the
Well, you
resources
Australians,
of
man, you gotta step
Japan,
up your game, man. You
India,
will be needed
Australia, and the United States.
By 2050,
Quad,
most of these
in one
islands will be
form or
underwater
another,
anyway.
could
Damn.
play an indispensable
That's
part
surreal.
going into the future. For now though, the PLA Navy looks to prioritize sea denial in the first island chain while contesting control over the second island chain, while also probing the waters of the third, fourth and fifth
Yeah, by the
island
time this
chains.
happens, the global heat
China
wave will
still
already have
has
killed
a
us all.
long way to go before its
Yeah.
2030 and 2050
There
plans
is no
come into
2050, bro.
maturity, but nothing worth having was
Trust me, man, in 20 years we're gonna sit here and watch videos about the water wars, man, where they all try to get to
ever
water
achieved
sources. I'm
without
telling you, bro, I'm
effort.
telling you.
I've been your
100%.
host Shirvan from Caspian Report.
What are you still doing here? Jeez, mate. Looking good. Check out these videos for more. I see you soon, boy.